afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio in the town of Geraldine, Alabama. We're your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications, and that's on the North Alabama end of it, but worldwide, you can watch us on Abundance TV, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. We're going to make candles today. I have some in the microwave, so it's making just a little bit of noise, so let me teach you a couple of things. First of all, the different kinds of waxes. I prefer the natural because I have asthma. And I love paraffin candles. They smell really good, but they're not all natural. So when I am burning a paraffin candle, it gets into my lungs and I start coughing, and it's just not a real good thing. So I do have to go the all natural way. Now, there's a couple of different kinds of waxes I use. First of all, this wax right here, I'll let you get a bird's eye view of it. This wax is called soy wax, and I do like that. It comes from the soybeans, and it is all natural, and it's just a great way to burn a candle. Again, when you are burning that candle, they're slow burning. You're not going to see the fire or a lot of smoke unless you use the wrong candle wick. You know, a lot of folks say, well, you know, I tried a soy candle one time and there was still some smoking. It's because the person who actually made the candle just used the wrong size. They used one that was just too big. And I think a lot of times the reason to do that is if you use a wick, and this is your wick, by the way, and I do like mine that have been dipped in wax. I just think they're better candles. Burn better. But this is your wick right here. There's a little tab on the bottom of it, and I'm going to show you a couple of money saving ideas on that as well. But if you'll see right here, this is the wick, and it is made exactly for a soy candle or for a beeswax candle. And so you got to make sure you got the right one. Now, what you'll see in a lot of the paraffin ones, they have these little tiny wires on the inside. And that's just to help the candle stand up straighter. I don't like to use that. That's another reason I like soy wax, because soy wax is a much harder, it's a much softer wax, and you can use a wick like this. Okay, so then again, we'll be talking about that again in just a few minutes. Now, you know, we have bees, we're beekeepers, and this is some of the beeswax that I had left over from robbing the hive a few weeks ago. And I'll be having a lot more of this wax. I'll be making a lot of, I use this in candles. You know, if I'm looking for more of a standalone type wax, I'll use my beeswax for that. If I'm looking, say, like a votive or something like that. Now, they're pretty pricey, so that's why we started our own beekeeping. So I can actually have my own wax. It doesn't cost such a fortune to do it. And then again, if I'm looking for something a little bit more on the soft side and I want a container candle, I'm going to use this, the soy. I know when we first moved to Sand Mountain area, I grew up in Oxford, and mother's side of the family is actually from Geraldine. So when I was in the 9th grade, we moved to Geraldine. And so Dad bought a farm. I think it was 45 acres, 46 acres of land. And so he worked a job, so he didn't really have time to handle a whole lot of cattle and stuff like that. So he did rent the land out. And when he rented it out, he rented it to a guy who planted soybeans. And so it's glad to know, that's how I heard my first stance of what's soybeans. So soybean wax actually comes from soybeans. And that, again, is what makes it an all-natural candle. Now, this thing is kind of stopped making the sound, so before I get it out of the microwave, I do want to show you again. This wax is beeswax, so it's a harder wax. Now, I'm not going to make standalone candles. It's not going to be votive or anything like that. Now, and I also use this beeswax right here for skincare, and I like to use just a little bit, and I won't take much in a soap. I found that out the hard way. I made some soaps, and they were as hard as rocks. So what I had to do was melt them down and use just very little of it at a time. But anyway, this is your soy wax, and I like to use this in my chapsticks. My chapsticks are all natural too. Everything I do is all natural. I like it that way. Okay, let's go ahead and put this out of the way. And I like to keep mine in a bag. My waxes in a bag. I just probably doesn't matter, but to me it does. I just feel like they stay fresher that way. So here we go. Let's go ahead and put this over here to the side. And also, let me go ahead and get the soy wax out of, there we go. This is exactly what I want. Now, I put this on for like 4 minutes in the microwave. And do use a, do make sure you use the muffin, okay? Because if not, it's going to be kind of hot. And I don't think you're going to like that. Okay, now what I'm looking for also is something to stir it with. And I'm going to just use this right here. It's just a little popsicle stick. And you'll notice there's a little hole in it. And I'm going to explain that to you again in just a few minutes. Now we're going to use the little tin candles. I like these especially for Christmas presents. Or if you're going to mail a present to somebody, you don't have to worry about glass breaking. And also, because of shipping charges, shipping is a lot higher than it used to be. These are much more lightweight, so you don't have to pay as much for shipping when you use these. I'm going to not put any dye. You can put dye colors and have really pretty, gorgeous candles, and I do that a lot, but since I'm using the travel tin, I don't really think that makes that much of a difference. Now, if you're using a glass container, and I'll show you this on another show, if you're going to use a glass container, you can make some really pretty ones and let the wax be super hot and let it splash the different colors, and kind of like, they're just really pretty that way. Okay, now I've melted some wax, and what I'm going to do is put some more wax into this because I want to cool it off a bit. And again, let's get to my little stick. Now you can use a paint stick, you know, just whatever you want to use. And I'm going to let that cool it off just a bit, okay, because I'll be melting some more wax too in just a minute. Let's go ahead and put it right there. I think that'll be a good spot. Now, I'm going to show you a couple different things. Okay, first of all, we're saving money, okay? And when you start a business, of any kind of business, I know a lot of my crafting friends, they'll go out and not paying attention to how much something costs, or can I reuse it, can I repurpose it? And yes, you can. You can see this wig is just going to be too tall for this. I got an idea. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to cut this off just a little bit. Then I'm going to show you how to save a little bit more money. Okay, now I don't need it going all the way up to the top of this right here, because I'm going to put a lid on it and it's just going to bend it down. So what I'm going to do is cut this wick to about right here. And by the way, these are 4-ounce containers. You can get any kind of container that you want. And I wanted to explain to you about the melting down process with wicks. And by the way, I'm going to go ahead and cut this down. I'm going to make a couple more wicks out of it. Let's just cut it in half. It doesn't hurt anything. There we go. I'm going to cut that thing in half. And I'm just using one of my little, what I use for it. And the reason I like to use this instead of a pair of scissors, I want this to be kind of frayed at the ends. And you'll see why in just a minute. And now this is my wire cutter, and it's so funny how this cuts wire much better than it cuts a wig. Okay, now I want this to be frayed down at the end, and I'm going to show you why in just a couple of minutes. But first, I'm going to show you a couple of ways that you can either use these little tabs, which is good, but you know something, I don't use them, and I'm going to tell you why. I use them just for demonstration purposes, especially if I'm giving some kind of a class. And I do teach classes, by the way. This is also a little holder that you can set, and I'll show you how to use that in just a minute. And I'm also going to show you how to use other things. Okay, now these little tabs, they're less messy, they say, but now I've made thousands of candles, so they're not that messy to me. And I'll go ahead and take, this is a little sticky side, so I'm going to take this part off, and that'll go into the trash. And let's go ahead and get my little wick right here, and I'm going to put it right here. See how I'm putting this on the top? I'm putting it on the sticky side. Okay, now I'm going to take the other sticky side, and I'm going to teach you a lesson at the same time to make sure that that's good and straight. And it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and take the other sticky side. Now, a lot of folks say, you know, I buy candles and they're kind of lopsided when they burn. In other words, it's not, the wick has not been put exactly in the middle. It needs to be in the middle. Okay, so if someone has made your candle, and a lot of manufacturing companies do this, I don't pay attention. They just like, you know, throw it in and there you go. So you can see that wick is in there. It's not going to go anywhere. And so if you're in a really big hurry and you don't have time to wait on the next step, this is a good way to do it. Now, here's another thing. I don't know if you can see, but see, there's just a little bit. A lot of folks say, well, it doesn't burn in the middle. It goes lopsided when it's burning. I don't feel like I'm getting all of the wax. I'm going to give you a couple solutions on that. And then another reason it doesn't burn all the way down to the bottom is when you use these little tabs, which is why I don't use them. See, there's a little thickness to that tab. Well, that thickness is not going to burn the candle all the way down flat in the bottom. That's the big reason I don't use them, because I want you to get every little juicy bit of fragrance out of that candle that you possibly can. Now, Donna, what's the solution to that? Okay, so I'm going to show you something else. Now, we had the tab, and you also saw, I'll move those tabs up there, where I have a couple of wicks. And let's take that pot holder and put him right there. Okay, here are the wicks. Now you noticed I wanted a little frayed in. See how that's frays right there? Can you see it? There you go. See how that's frayed? Oh, I should have done my nails. Oh my goodness, they're terrible looking. So I let it fray. Now there's a reason for that. So what I'm going to do, see, I've got some little tabs that I bought. This is going to save you some money, okay? This is the one I cut off from the other wick. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just put this through, and I want the frayed part. See how that frays right there? Now I want it to be level. See how that's level? You see? I want the frayed part to be in the bottom, and that's just going to help that wick stay in there much longer. Okay, let's go ahead and get my pliers. And I like these needle-nosed ones. Now, you want to get at the very tip of that. See this? Go to the very tip. Right there. And then you go down just a little bit more. And let me tell you why you want to do it that way. It's going to keep the wick tab flat. Now, if I were to go right down here at the very bottom, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to waste it. I'm just going to show you. If I were to go down here at the very bottom, right here, with my pliers, the very bottom, if I do that, it's going to create a curve right here in that wick. And what's going to happen is as you're melting that candle down, it's not going to sit flat. And we don't want that to happen. Okay, because again, you want your customers, or if you're making them for yourself, you're making them for Christmas presents, birthday presents, or whatever, you want everybody to get just the best, luscious fragrance that they possibly can. Now, I've got the melted wax. Let's get my little holder here. And see how that's melted. No fragrance in it yet. Okay, so I'm going to show you something. I don't want to put the fragrance in it yet. I want it to melt down. I want it to kind of cool off a little bit. But what I'm going to do is dip a little bit of that and put it into this candle. Okay, can you see? See, it's starting to move around. So let me go ahead. I can show you after it hardens. Now let me tell you this. A lot of the way your candle turns out depends on the humidity. That's why I like making my candles in the summertime better than I do in the wintertime. Because what I've noticed in the wintertime, the room's got to be warm. It's got to be. You can't have any of the low humidity in there, because what it can do, it'll still smell good, but I'm talking about how a candle looks, especially if you're giving it to somebody for a present. That candle's got to look good. You know what I mean? So it's not going to look that good if it has this kind of weirdness, like you'll see, like it's a cloudy looking candle. Still smells good, still good wax, but it has that clouding effect, especially if you're using a glass container. It won't matter so much if you're using a container like this. Okay, now that wick is in there, and this one is just about, yeah, okay. It's enough to where I can kind of show you. That wick has to be right smack dab in the middle of that container. Okay, now you can use anything for a container. Sometimes I just use jars. You can use, well, like canning jars. Use a little pint, and I've done several of those. Now you need to also charge by the ounce. Okay, so you're doing it so you can make a living. Okay, and you know, with the high cost of things going these days, you've got to consider the high cost of what you're paying. Your wax is going up in price. Everything is going up in price. And if you don't go pick your, sometimes I just go pick mine up. There's a place in Birmingham I get mine. Although there's a place in actually North Carolina called Candle Science. When I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, I could go pick it up, and I had to pay for the freight. The charges have just really skyrocketed when you have to go pay for freight, because I buy mine in 50-pound and 100-pound containers this time of the year, because I'm going to be making a lot of candles. So, you know, just be aware of that. You know, things do go up in price. That's another reason, again, that we started to go ahead and get bees, and I'm a beekeeper this time. Okay, now this is still warm. I can touch the handle now without burning myself. So what I'm going to do is pour the rest of this wax up, and this is going to give me about 4 cups. Now, I can show you a little trick. Okay, you need to get the wax melted, and it's going to kind of melt on its own. And I think I'm probably nose blind, because I've made candles since forever, since the 70s, I guess, the late 70s. And by making candles, after a while, you're not smelling it anymore. Everybody else is. People can come outside my house and they can drive up and they can say, wow, your house smells good even outside. And so that lets me know I'm probably using too much fragrance. The container is still hot, so you can see how what I poured in here is just kind of melting down just a bit. Now, when it completely melted, some people would go ahead and put the fragrance in and pour it up now. But what's going to happen is it's just not going to be holding that fragrance in like it should. And as you can see, if I were to put that in now, there's a lot of it that still hasn't melted. And what's going to happen there is that fragrance is not going to soak up because it's not melted. That's just the way it goes. Okay, so this is going to give me just about, I'm sure I'm using too much fragrance, but I will say this. My customers pay a little bit more for mine. And because sometimes they don't even burn the candles. They say that they'll just put them out, put them in the bathroom or whatever, and you can still smell it. I'm going to help it along. I'm going to stick it back in the microwave for just about another minute. And you need to try your own microwave out just to make sure, okay? All right, let's do that by another minute. 100. And that's going to help that part. Now, we've got a few of these started, so let me go ahead and start a few more, because I want to go ahead, we're going to do assembly line style. So let's see how many we can get. Now that's going to be about 4 cups right there of the candle wax, and then I'm going to use about 4 ounces, and you don't have to use that much, but to me it's worth it. And this is Love Spell. It's Love Spell type from Victoria's Secret. And then after we get through with that, I want to show you another good combination on what you can use. You know, some people like sandalwood. If you're looking for candles, because guys like candles too, you know, and so guys like kind of a rooty-like, tree-like, something like that fragrance. So I'll show you a good combination. Guys love French vanilla, but I'm going to show you a winning fragrance, and that is sandalwood. This is Australian sandalwood. And then this is French vanilla. So we're going to combine that fragrance and make some more candles. Okay, let's see what time. Oh, I better hurry it along. Okay. Now I put this in here for about another minute. So let's move this out of the way. There'll be plenty of working room when you're making candles, okay? All right, I'm going to stir this up a little bit more. Now, I want this to melt down, and I think it probably will. I think I'm allowing more time. In the wintertime, you've got to adjust, okay, the way you do things. In the wintertime, I would need to really melt that down more. So you can see how it's melting down some. And again, this is all natural. This is soy wax. So if I were making paraffin candles right now with my asthma, I would already be coughing. I mean, I wouldn't be able to handle it. So this is pretty cool. All right, now let's go ahead and put some more wicks in. And remember, we had a couple. And remember, I frayed one on the other end. So let's go ahead and get some more ready. While I'm letting that melt, and it just looks nicer when it gets into the container as well. Now I used needle nose, and you could use any kind of plier. Just make sure now that it's good and staying in there. I've heard folks talk about buying candles before, and they would say, you know what, it would burn down, and then the wick just fell off. The wick fell down into the candle when it was melting down about halfway. Well, you got to put it in the middle, and you got to make sure that you allow enough time, if you're dipping it like I am, that it dries. Now, I want to show you something. So if I were to do this, see how that moved? Because it's not dried. See, it's going to move. I want this thing to be totally dried, because when I pour up these candles, I want the extra assurance that that wick is not going anywhere. Okay, and again, I'm going to cut a couple more. After you do a few of these, you'll kind of, you won't have to have a measuring stick. Do a few thousand. I promise you, you won't have to. Now, I could use scissors like I said before, but I prefer using this because I want it to be frayed. See how that frayed part is right there again? And I'm going to cut this one in half. So what I'm getting per wick, and I'm using a 4-ounce container. So what I'm getting, let's get another one of these ready. Again, it's a 4-ounce container. So what I'm getting is 3 to 1. I'm not throwing the wicks away. And there we go. I'm just dipping it and I'm sticking it in there. Okay, here's the one I just did. See, it's already dried. And again, it's got to be bullseye right there in the middle. Now, when I first started making candles years and years and years ago, I would get a little measuring stick. And I would put it, I'd mark it, I'd get a crayon or something. Crayons are good to use because they're wax too. But you're not like, you can melt down crayons, by the way, and make some pretty candles. But remember that little bit paraffin. So if you have asthma, you have a hard time breathing it in. Or somebody who's on an oxygen tank like that, this is going to be a great way that they could smell some nice candles. So I would measure it. And so what I would do is put a little dot right smack down in the middle, so that I would know exactly where to put that wick. Again, after years and years and years of experience doing this, you can just eyeball it and make it work. Now, I could go on ahead and melt this down some more, this wax. I don't want to do that because let's pretend I have an event coming up and I've got to make 500 candles for this event. I've got to do assembly line, okay? And I got to get this thing working right. So if I melt it all the way down, there's just going to be more dry time that I've got to wait on. And I don't have time to wait. I got to get it rocking and rolling now. See how cloudy that looks? Again, if you melt it all the way down, you can see through it until it dries. But here I go. See this? I like that. I like the consistency of that. It's going to dry much faster. Again, because I'm on assembly line. I'm on an assembly line style. Okay, let's go on ahead and do a couple more. Then I'm going to add the fragrance. I want to add the fragrance when it looks like this, when it's got that cloudy, it's not dry yet, okay? And so I want it to look like that. And let's grab another one. And remember that other wick. Again, I'm saving on some money. There is a place in Birmingham, I can't think of the name of it, but I think they're probably the only candle company. I think they're around Oxmoor Road. And so when I'm out of wax, I just go down there one day and pick it up. Now, they're not open on the weekends, which is kind of inconvenient. Um, there we go. And again, make sure that's sturdy in there. But that's where I usually go get mine. It's worth the drive, even with these crazy gas prices. It's still worth the drive to go down there and just get it. Okay, here we go. I've eyeballed it, and it's in there. See, this one is already, it's just a little bit. It hasn't done its thing yet. Okay, let's see what time it is, because you know how it is. I start talking with you, and I just forget I'm on planet Earth. Okay, here we go, and this is 4 ounces of the fragrance, and this is 4 cups. Remember, 4 cups, 4 ounces. That's just, again, my ratio. You can use a lot less. Some people only use 2 ounces. I want 4. When I make chocolate chip cookies, instead of 1 cup of chocolate chips, I do 2 cups. I over excess everything, I'm sure. Okay, I want to get every last bit of that awesome drop that I possibly can out of there and make it smell so heavenly. It smells so good. Now make sure you give this a really good stir, okay? That's extremely important. It's got to be mixed really well, because if not, you're going to have some burning on your candles, which that's just another idea I want to tell you about. So you bought a candle before, and it says that it is a soy candle. However, it's got some burning, and Donna just told me that the soy ones don't burn. Well, this is what happens. Sometimes people just don't stir the fragrances really well. And when they don't stir it really, really well, what happens is some of that fragrance floats around, and it gets in the candle, and it's floated, and it sweats, and then it's going to burn. And when it's burning, it's not going to smell good. So again, make sure you give it a really, really good stir. I wish you could smell this. It is heavenly. Alrighty. So I'm going to go on ahead and pour this up. And again, it's going to dry really fast. Okay. Alright, here we go. That's all there is to it. That's it. Now, if you have a really tall candle, see, I'm not going to have to put a stick. You know, I told you the very first part of the show, I told you about this little hole that's right in the middle. See that? So what I can do, if I had a really tall candle, I would just insert the wick into that hole, which I'm not going to do, but you could stick it in there. Or if you didn't want to do that, you can always get a couple of, if you have some popsicle sticks left over from the kids' party or whatever, and you wanted to use those, all you'd have to do is just get a couple popsicle sticks and just put them one to the other. And then I got this little gizmo. Hardly ever use it. So all you'd have to do is just stick it in just like this. And what this does is it makes sure that that candle wick melts exactly right in the middle, right in the center, because it's extremely important. Okay. Now again, I am, you know, using a shorter container. You would have to use that if you had something that was just a little bit taller. You would really need to use something and have something like that in place. Thank you for watching Afternoon Drive Home. Thank you for coming into my kitchen, and thank you for helping me make candles today. I'm going to take these and put these in the shop that actually carries my candles. Make sure you have nice labels that go on top of them. You know, that's enticing when people see a nice label and go in there. Mine is called Donna's Designs. And so, and I always make sure I have the fragrance on those as well. Again, thank you so much for watching. I sure do appreciate you. I know you could be doing anything else, but you're watching me, and I appreciate that. I'm your